reminder here that if you like what you're listening to tonight, they're all published in Volume 6 of Red Light Lit Book, being sold over here to my left for just $10 cash. How's everybody feeling? Fantastic. So we have just a couple more readers for you tonight. It was with great pleasure that I introduce you to your next reader of the evening. She is a former fiction editor of 14 Hills and has earned her MA in fiction from San Francisco State University. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome Stephanie Doing.
This is a work of fiction. It is not based on a true story. It's called Soft Tissue. Ricky was all bones and angles and edges, especially when he had bad dreams and jabbed at me with his sharp elbows. But there was one place on his body that had gone soft, and stayed soft, no matter what I did. For 7.5 years, he had been my best friend, and for 7 years, he had been my boyfriend. But the softness had only come recently. Maybe it was because we had started to see each other differently after a while. Sometimes I thought of him as lean muscle and heartbeats beneath hot skin, but other times he was just a collection of unsavory qualities, a nasal, honking laugh, slow, deathly farts at night, and a soft dick that no longer loved me. When we watched romantic movies on the couch, Ricky became a stifling presence, one that made me grow very still, almost afraid to breathe, so that he wouldn't suspect how warm my cheeks were, or how much the movie made me want to be touched. He was a stern hand that pushed my own reaching fingers away, a reproachful scowl that made me feel like a lecherous creep, and an empty seat at the dinner table that became a shadow behind the closed bathroom door, where he spent more and more of his time. Ricky was a sullen man during the day and a writhing tornado at night. He was the man who shared my bed and rattled my dreams with his nightmares. But he only squirmed for the monsters in his sleep, and never for me. When he tossed on the bed, I could feel the vibrations in my own dreams. I, too, began to thrash around, and we fueled each other's nightmares. In my dreams, he was a ghastly blind man who walked around our burning house and didn't notice me as I was devoured by flames. In his dreams, I must have been a demented ghoul that flew at his tender genitals with my grasping claws. When he woke up with unfocused eyes, I wondered what I looked like to him. Was I a few black hairs under the chin, nostrils that flared open too wide, demonic burps after dinner? I felt a distance growing between us and I grew scared. If I could remove whatever was pushing us apart, I would. I didn't know how real the distance actually was, that there was something growing in between myself and Ricky, something that pressed on his spine, weakened his legs, and numbed his once easily roused loins. I heard him in the bathroom, groaning to himself, and I only thought to be jealous of the towels, because they might see whatever it was he was hiding from me. If I had known what was going on, I may not have secretly bought Cialis from an online Canadian drugstore, and I may not have crushed up a tab and put it in his beer without telling him. Later that night, he tossed and turned, but this time he was awake, and this time he squirmed for me. When he rolled over to face me, his dick pointed out of his sweatpants almost accusingly. He touched his hot, clammy hand to my chest, and I jumped on him. We pressed ourselves together so tightly our skin squelched. My cheeks burned even hotter than they did when we watched romantic movies. Ricky started to gasp with every thrust, and I felt ready to sing the praises of Cialis out loud to the world. But there was still something in between us, even as we were slipping and sliding against each other. His face was taut, and his mouth locked into a grimace, and it looked almost as if he was not enjoying it. At that moment, his eyes squinched up, and he shouted out as his pelvis smacked against mine. It was not a pleasant shout, but it still fired me up. I couldn't help but move faster, hold him tighter. Ricky pounded harder, his face shining with sweat, and his lips curled up in a pained snarl. As he came, his sighing exhalation immediately turned into a groan. He choked on his breath, as if he had just been punched in the stomach, and his eyes rolled up in their sockets until they shone white. I reached for him, panicked, but he collapsed backward and slid off the bed before I could grab him. I took him to the hospital, and there I learned that he had a tumor. After surgery, his doctor informed me that over the course of years and years, a small cyst had been growing at the base of his tailbone, forming a tumor that pressed against his insides and numbed his crotch. That was what made it hard for him to use the restroom and caused the back pains that kept him thrashing around at night. The pressure of Ricky's recent erection had pushed back on the tumor, causing him to black out in pain. The tumor was an unusual sort, the doctor continued, because inside it there were not only fluids, but also other soft tissues. And sometimes, in these soft tissues, little organs might begin to grow. When the doctor had removed Ricky's teratoma, he opened it. Inside it, he found a tiny, perfectly formed, unblinking eyeball. The lids were purple and the eye was yellow, and I shuddered to think of the things that an eye like that might see. I still asked the doctor if he could show it to me, but he refused. It was unusual, he said, but these things happen sometimes. After Ricky recovered, he would probably feel much better. And it was true. Without the third eye in between us, things were better. Ricky was muscles and bones, and I was a gentle rain of searching fingers. We held each other at night and dreamed quiet, blank dreams, barely moving at all. He didn't tell me why he had kept his pain a secret. I didn't tell him why I had given him Canadian drugs behind his back. I thought maybe we could fall in love again. We just had to forget the things we had seen in each other before. Thank you.